All right, good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call our recess meeting back to order for Tuesday, June the 4th, 2019 at 4 p.m. Again, if you came in late, please silence your mobile devices if you have those with you. And please remember that when you come up, speak into the microphones up there. Madam Clerk. I got a little premature. Madam Clerk, there she is. Madam Clerk, all of the commissioners here, along with the county manager, assistant county manager, deputy county managers, and the county attorney. Gentlemen, you've had the agenda for a while. If there's no additions or deletions, we'll accept a motion to approve. Commissioner Taylor's had a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor, signify by raising the right hand. Madam Clerk, that'd be 5-0. Moving on to our first items for a decision today is from the Register of Deeds Office regarding an excise tax refund request presented by Tyra Duckworth, Assistant Register of Deeds.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
On April the 30th, 2019 of this year, James Fleischer Law Firm inadvertently recorded a deed in our county. It was supposed to be recorded in Catawba County. The deed was from Michael and Jacqueline Welch to a Sean and Brenda Bringen, and it was recorded in our office, like I said, on April the 30th. Mr. Fleischer paid a total of $90 in recording fees and $4 in vendor fees for the e-recording. Those fees cannot be refunded, and he understands that, but however, he is respectfully asking for the excise tax to be returned to him, which was a total of $328 that he paid for that. The Register of Deeds agrees upon this request with proof of the document that he recorded in Catawba County, and that should be in your packet that he has approved that.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard the presentation. Questions for Tyra on this matter? So you just made an honest mistake? Mm-hmm. And you've double-checked and the deed's been recorded in Catawba like it should be?
Yes, I've called Catawba County and everything, and also got a copy of the recording.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's the only fair and equitable thing to do is to return his money.
And your motion is?
Well, suggested motion to authorize this issuance of a $328 refund to Fisher Law Offices pursuant to North Carolina GS 1052228.37.
Gentlemen, you heard Commissioner Taylor's motion. All in favor, signify by raising your right hands. Madam Clerk, that'll be 5-0. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so
can
much.
do that. All right. Moving on into our items for discussion. Our first item will be from the Sheriff's Department regarding the fiscal 2019-2020 budget reconsideration presented by the Honorable Steve Wisman, High Sheriff of Burke County. Hello, Sheriff.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you. We just have two items that we would like for the commissioners to review. The first one is the new staffing, jail staffing, and for the record, I'll just read what I hope that you have copies of. The opinion of the sheriff, the chief deputy, the two captains, and this group is comprised of three former jail administrators and a detention officer, in conjunction with the current jail administrator, believe the recommended jail staffing of 41 is unsafe for both the staff and the inmates to operate the new 264-bed facility. We ask that the commissioners approve our budget request of 60 staff. That was our original budget request. B, if the commissioners desire to initially open the jail with a lesser number of inmates than full capacity, the sheriff's office will be happy to provide a recommended number of staff to accomplish that goal. Sheriff's office asks that the commissioners and sheriff's office determine a mutually agreed maximum number of inmates and a jail staffing number to accomplish such a plan. C, should the sheriff's office and commissioners be unable to agree upon a maximum number of inmates and a staffing number, the sheriff's office requests the county hire an agreed upon experienced jail consultant. The jail consultant will be contracted to conduct an assessment of the new facility and make a recommendation to the commissioners and the sheriff's office. The recommendation would include a staffing number that would be sufficient to safely operate the jail for both the staff and inmates, and also provide the sheriff's office with the ability to comply with all the North Carolina statutes and the DHHS regulations for operating the jail. And then finally, should a consensus not be reached between the sheriff's office and the commissioners, the sheriff's office asks that the county attorney provide an opinion of the liability that the county and the sheriff's office may incur for opening the jail in the opinion of the sheriff's office without insufficient staffing to be safe, and 2, to meet all the North Carolina statutes and DHHS regulations for jail operations.
All right, gentlemen, you heard the sheriff. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I presented some information that I would like to share, and that has to do with the jail, to lend some understanding.
Have you got one you can pass down to the sheriff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody pass it on.
I think we're, Margaret.
And this is, has to do with more the budget, and it does actually the jail, but it focuses on the jail, and I think you'll understand why when I conclude with it. But I've titled this "The New Jail and the Budget," and I've got in the left column over there, cost to build, additional staff at 25, additional staff at 43. I understand he's asking for 51. Sally Port and the courthouse, transportation vehicle, bus and van. But what I wanted to get a look at here is the tremendous cost of building this jail and the budget impact it's going to have for 20 years. Cost to date to build the jail, if you look at the bottom totals, grand total is $22 million. Yearly payments, I've got it broken down. Cost to build, or that would be the debt payment. The staff, additional staff, you see those numbers are pretty close, 1,827,850 and 1,843. Now, I did a form of this last year, and Paul Imes had that staff about $350 less than that's showing, and that's showing the addition in the pay raises. The 20-year payout for both of them are there. The yearly option, or yearly option number 2, includes the 43 staff instead of the 25. And then the other items I've got down is bus and van, and there were other ones, but I just, gentlemen, ran out of time. I could not complete it. But down at the bottom, 20-year payout for this jail is $74,617. Option 2, it would be $101 million plus. Now, the interesting facts of this is the 20-year cost of $74 million totals $278,421.64 per jail sale for debt payment and added staff. We gained 68 jail sales. The 20-year cost per gained sales to get those other 68 sales is $1,097,000 and change. If we go with 43 additional staff employees, which is the sheriff's request, the 20-year cost is $377,480 per jail sale. If we just count the 68 gained sales, the cost of construction and added staff is $1,487,591 per sale. If you divide the entire 256 sales by construction payout only, it is $36,557. It's $142,800 per jail sale. Each tax cent represents $700 in your budget. If you divide $36,708.50 by 700, it will take 5.25% of your tax numbers to fulfill the yearly payment of both debt costs and staff. However, if you add that 1.2 million Sally Port, this increases that figure to $4,870,850. Divided by 700,000, it takes 6.9 cents tax cents to pay the cost of the new jail. Translated, it will take 7 cents of the 69.5 tax cents to support the new jail. After this year, it will take 5.25 tax cents to support the new jail. Postscript, if we vote to add 43 additional staffs, option number 2, it adds 1.9 cent to both figures. Without the Sally Port included, it would take 7.15 cents of the tax cents. With the Sally Port, it would take 8.86 tax cents to support the new jail. Or, if you want to put it on the taxpayer's advantage, it would lower the tax rate a minimum of 5.25 cent tax. Number 7, it is obvious the 7% revenue increase proposed in the budget will go to support the new jail. The citizens will carry this burden for 20 long years. In the conclusion, I have not been secretive or silent about the jail. I supported the jail wholeheartedly when the figures in black and white showed that the money we saved on not renting out jail space, jail cells in other counties, and the money that we saved on cost and traffic and shipping prisoners back and forth to the courthouse would have paid, and I believe it was 1.3 million, don't hold me to that, would have covered the debt of the $14 million jail. But when the plans were changed and the cost went over 16 million, and then when it would take more staff instead of less staff, as we were promised, I voted no. If I had to do it over again, I would still vote no, gentlemen. For the record, the jail is not the sheriff's problem. He did not campaign for the new jail. He did participate in the process and advising on many aspects of the jail, which I'm sure all of us appreciated. And the sad note is that, and the truth of the matter is that elected county commissioners have a right to build a jail. They also have a right to levy a tax to pay for it. However, it does not make it any easier to swallow. And to think about that 5, 6, or 7% of your tax rate every year for 20 years is going to pay for that new jail. And I just think it still say in a very professional manner that we had options and we did not choose to take them. And those options would cost you about less than 10% of what we're paying. And you could have had as many jail cells. And with that, I'll hush and you can throw darts at me or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Sheriff, looking at your information, particularly item A, where you're talking about the staffing and your opinions. Of course, we have, had a jail architect that is familiar with jails. He's designed numerous jails and worked with officials throughout the area. We've looked at how those jails are operated, run, and I looked at the staffing of those jails, and I think Brian's numbers try to take all that into account. Can you give us some explanation as to why, in your opinion, you don't think you have enough staff to run the jail?
Yeah, I think the
And maybe,
architect,
maybe break it down to, how the thing runs and how you see it perhaps differently than somebody else, and why other folks are saying, well, you need X number of people to do this, and in your opinion, you need some other number.
yeah, of course, architects are looking at paper and pencil, and they're not inside a facility running one. When you have 3 jail administrators that's been in there and understand the complexities of running the jail, which is different from a prison, by the way, because you got people coming and going all the time. The original number that the command staff come up with, plus the jail administrator, and through the National Correction Institute, was 74. When they told me that, I said, there's absolutely no way the commissioners will ever give us 74 people. I said, trim it down to the bare number that you feel like that we can safely operate the jail. 60 was it. They could probably individually tell you why they come up with those numbers. But I can tell you, one of the things I think might be getting lost, and I was just calculating some numbers while Mr. Taylor was sharing his input. You got to consider that 60 staff really ends up with the same number of people that we have now and only servicing 223 beds. So we're using the same number of people to move to 264 beds in a facility with a much larger footprint than we have now. You've got to consider that 37 of those people at BurkeCounty, half of those people are paid for by Burke County. So you take those 37, you add the 17 that we have at the downtown jail, you're up to 54 people. That's all we asked for was 60, minus 6 people, 2 transport officers, and 4 people to stay at the downtown jail during court sessions. So we have come up with the exact same number of 54 to operate 264 beds, when before we had only 223 beds. So to reduce those numbers and increase the beds in a footprint that much larger than we're doing now is just not feasible. And that's the reason why I asked that we hire a professional, experienced jail consultant and let them provide us with what they think. And that's the way it's objective as we can get. I mean, it's not us, it's not the commissioners, it's somebody that does it for a living. And we can do that. We can agree upon a consultant and look at what they come up with and go from there is what I would recommend. Because we feel like 60, and these guys have been in there, they run it, they see the danger that's involved, and with Pasquotank, with officers getting killed down there, I think they've been sued. I think there's more and more DOCs getting sued because they're not given enough staff. And that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want the staff to be harmed or the inmates to be harmed. And we just realize, we've been in a situation where we see what can happen in a jail when you don't have sufficient staff and you know you don't have sufficient staff. And that's where I think there's some liability. And it's just a difference of opinion where we feel like the minimum number is and what's recommended as the minimum number.
I guess where I'm trying to go is, I hear what you're saying. You're looking at a jail design that we use now. You're looking at a downtown jail, many-year-old facility. I'm sure not set up to today's standards for safety and security. But have you worked together with what, the design of the building and what our folks say, the manager and the architect, and with input from other folks that are running this jail, with the same design? Have you looked at the bodies to see, what's, and I don't remember these counties that have jails just exactly like this pretty much. How are they doing it, and how does those numbers compare to the numbers you're looking for? I mean, have you gone to that point other than just, saying, well, footprint, and, I understand all those numbers, but it's a totally different design with a totally different concept of how to manage safety. And
Yeah, one of the things too, I think it gets lost in this is that we've got one person now that's in the command tower that would be comparable to what we're going to go to the new jail. The only difference is we're going to have two people in there, a male and a female, for the different sides of the jail, but everybody else has to be back on the floor, and you can't save tremendous amount of manpower just because of the design of the jail. We can see everybody much better, but you still have to have those people going cell to cell. And one of the things that's happening is the DHHS is changing the jail requirements, and we're going to have to physically now go every 35 minutes. In the past, we had to do a minimum of 2 per hour. You could do one theoretically at 5 o'clock and then 5:05, and you're good. Now we have to make a round every 35 minutes and physically see those people. Those people are on the floor, these detention officers, and they're walking through this jail. Now, one thing the jail administrator did was he just walked through there in a normal situation to determine how long it took him to walk this jail normal fashion. It was 52 minutes, I believe he said it took. So I think that gets lost. People think that you just set up in the command tower and you see everybody. That is true, but we have to be on the floor actually seeing the people. They've changed the rules and regulations. It's much broader or much more narrower now. We got to be on the floor. And I understand that the commissioners or some of you guys went and looked at a jail. We weren't aware of that until later, but I don't know what they're doing. We have looked, and initially a couple years ago, I think we went together and looked at some jails. But that's the reason I think that before we jump off into a situation where we could have some liability, I strongly suggest we hire somebody that we both agree upon that's objective and let them look at that. I think it'll be much more than 41. I would feel confident about that.
Given the size of our current jail and our population, and I don't think we're going to rush right into renting a whole bunch of beds right off the bat. It seems that, we're not going to have full capacity at this jail on day one. So with what the manager is recommending, would that not suffice to get started and give you an opportunity to kind of see how this thing's going to work? And
I think that's an excellent idea, and we understand that. What we would like to do is for you to give us a number that you would like to open it up with. If you want to use our number, and Greg, I think, did some calculations the other day, and we have up to, like 168 or have 168. So if you wanted us to look at what we could do, how many staff we think we could do 168, we'd be happy to do that, and hopefully we could agree upon that number. We could safely do it. We would be fine with that. I think eventually we would love to be able to fill up the jail and start having some revenue to help offset that, Mr. Taylor, that cost of the jail. We're 100% for that, but I think it's a great idea to start small and just house our own inmates. But I would like to have a specific number that we agree upon. When it gets over 168, we got to start shipping them out because we don't have staff but to have 168. So that's something that we would love to sit down and do, and we will come up with a number for that or whatever number that you want us to look at. I think that's a great idea.
would that number not be dictated by the way the jail is designed, certain areas?
And we were aware that you may be wanting to do that, so we have sit down and looked at how we could, which beds we could use to most efficiently do that. Now, obviously, you got to keep females and males apart, but we are starting to look at that and thinking that you may want us to do that. So it wouldn't take us long. We could come up with a number, and after you tell us how many people you want us to prepare for, and come up with a staffing number. I think that's a great idea. Another thing that, and I've shared this with you guys for probably 2 years now, I have still strong concerns that we're not going to be able to find enough applicants to staff the jail. We just lost one, or going to Thursday, I think is his last day. We are competing with companies, and let me say this, thank you so much for giving sworn officers that pay raise in March. That stopped the bloodletting. We were losing people. We got up to about 17, 18 vacancies. We've got that down to 16. With the increase in the detention officer pay starting July, first week in July. That will help us with the 3% cost of living. We are very, very appreciative of that to get us up to market average. But what we're facing now is we're losing an officer that Department of Corrections is hiring at $40,000, giving them a $9,000 signing bonus and a promise of 5% pay increase in July. So that's what we're competing with. I say that to say that we are very concerned with having enough applicants to staff this jail, and that's been a concern of mine for a couple of years. We'll end up, I think, with 2 vacancies after we lose these 2. We'll end up having 2 vacancies, so we're struggling to keep 17 positions filled, much less whatever number we end up agreeing upon.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Sheriff, with the philosophy that Jeff laid out, I believe in your background information, you need, what, 3 months, about 3 months to train? Say if you started with 25 and all of a sudden you needed 10 more. What timetable are we on to get that 10 more ready? Is it 3 months or?
That depends solely on, the applicants we have. The difficulty is trying to project that. And I'll give you a good example. We're asking for, and that's in my next request, to let us start hiring in July, to staff this thing in December. Now, some jails, and Catawba County is one of them, they're starting in July, and they're opening their jail a full year later. They're fearful that they can hire enough people in a year to get their new addition opened. We're only asking for 6 months, but I'll have to say I am concerned that we'll find enough applicants to get even the numbers to house our own people. That's the reality of law enforcement and detention that this country's facing, and we are struggling with that just like everybody else. So Mr. Taylor, I don't know what it would take, how long it would take to hire 10 people. I can tell you with the sworn officers, like I say, the tourniquet that you guys were able to put on the leaving that we had stopped the people from leaving. But with 16 vacancies, we only hired 2 out of this last basic law enforcement training class. On that pace, we're going to have to wait for 8 basic law enforcement BLET training sessions to be completed at 2 a month. That takes 4 years to replace those 16 people. So calculate detention officers. The difficulty that we have also is when we hire a deputy, they've already been through their training. Now, we put them through field training. We do 18 weeks of field training before they're ever let on the street by themselves. The thing that's a little bit different with detention, and it's good in the fact that when we hire a detention officer, we actually send them to detention school, which is a month long after they're hired. If we staff it at the minimum level, our concern is if we have a great number of new people that we have to send to school, how do you run the jail with 10, 20, 30 people in a school? So we're asking to hire these people starting in July, and we've got a plan, so it won't cost us much money. I'll share that with you if you want. We've got a plan to start trying to hire in July and at least get those that we hire through basic law enforcement training. We can do that free. We can do it at Western Piedmont Community College. We've already worked with them and established that they'll set up a class for us so we can get all of those trained. But we do want some additional time to get them what we call field trained. So we're thinking that the minimum amount of time that we would need is 6 months starting in July. Let me expound on what I mentioned about trying to save money. One of the things that we learned when we talked to the North Carolina Sheriff's Training Standards was that we can't just transfer these people over from Burke-Catawba. They have to go through the Sheriff's Office background. That's a separate agency. So we're going to have to do backgrounds just like the persons from another county. But what we can do is this. All the people that want to apply from Burke-Catawba can go ahead and apply. If we go ahead and do those backgrounds, we can have them certified as inactive with the sheriff's office. Now, they'll be active at BurkeCounty, but inactive with the sheriff's office. Then those people truly can walk up the hill when we open the jail and start working. But that's our plan. Of course, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. That's in the next request for contract background investigators. But we've thought through this process, but I just can't emphasize enough, and that's the reason I've really, to add knowledge, and told you guys that we're concerned about being able to have the staff to open this jail. That's the reason I actually like the concept of starting small and with a reduced amount of staff that we can hopefully hire and get trained, and then we can see how it goes.
So let's pretend I'm 30, boy, wouldn't that be nice? And I want a career change, and I come to you, and I say, what's it take for me to be an officer or a detention officer? What is my timetable? When do I get hired? When do I get on the job or whatever?
What we could do, and this is our plan, for people that's walking in and wants to start detention that's not already at BurkeCounty, we can utilize those people as soon as we start this project with the courthouse. That is going to put a lot of additional burden on the downtown jail that we currently got. Now, remember, when that new jail opens up, downtown jail becomes just a holding facility. But right now, it's a full operating jail. When the current jail administrator started looking at, we can no longer just press buttons. We now have to get up. There's not but 3 people there, remember. Now, 2 of them's in the back. One of them has to stay in the control room all the time. You've got to bring one out from the back of the jail. Now you've got one person with 55 people there. The one person has to physically walk all the way down to the end of that tunnel or whatever it ends up going to be to physically unlock a door to let them in and deal with that. I think the jail administrator the other day, just to see how many times that happens, in a 24-hour period, that was 211 times that we got somebody getting up, walking, and dealing with that person. That person comes in, now they're in the jail. And it may be as simple as an attorney, a bondsman, somebody bringing money. So it can be a myriad of things, but we could start utilizing those people, training them by incorporating them into downtown jail immediately and get them the training that they need. But we have to have everybody, everyone we hire has to be through that detention school within 1 year. There's no continuances. In the past, we could continue that up to a year. Was that the maximum?
2 6-month extension.
2 6-month extension. Now, with the new jail regulations, that no longer exists. Those people, when we hire them, they have to be through school within a year. Now, you think that's a long time. The problem is people, all these new people you come in, it's hard to let people off to go to training because you don't have enough people to fill in. That's the reason theoretically in the downtown jail we have 2 floaters, and we've not had those positions, I don't know, a year, 2 years filled. But those floaters, that's to allow people to take vacation if they're sick, to go to training. That's what we worry about. Even with the staffing of 60, we're concerned about how can we operate the jail again safely with not having those people there. So that's the reason why we're so adamant about starting to hire in July and get these people through school and through their what we call field training before all of that, before we open the new jail.
I'm going to ask one other question from your explanation there. Is there any way, I'm going to call it automation, that a lot of that up and down, can there be a locking safe, for sake of words, that people who are bringing stuff by can drop it in there and it be distributed to the appropriate person with, multiple dealing out these items to the prisoners so that you don't have to have that constant up and down? Is there any way to, I guess, automate or modernize any actions over there? And we probably should ask this question before we build a jail, but is there something that could be done that would take less officers' time or better organize that job?
I think with the new jail and the current jail, we don't have that problem. All we do is sit there and press a button, they come to us. We don't have to get up and do anything. Then we can deal with it right there. But the problem is, they can't get to us anymore. We can't press a button. Those doors are not remotely opened and closed anymore. We have to physically get up from the jail, open the jail door, walk all the way to the end of that tunnel, and now deal with that person. You can't just let them drop and leave because there'll be money. There'll be all kinds of problems with that. I left $1,000. Why did he only get $100? So you'd have to physically go out there. And the jail administrator, I'm sure, can share many, many stories, but a lot of those people, they don't realize they can't bring this. You got to send them back. They don't have their IDs. They got to go back. So you have to physically go meet with those people.
Yeah.
But you won't have to deal with that with the new jail. It is automated, much more efficient with the new jail and the current jail. It's just in this interim of building.
Sheriff, another question. Are there other staffing options, contract labor or anything like that?
I'm not aware of anything. I think everybody's struggling. I mean, nobody can find sufficient applicants. Everybody's struggling. I'm not aware. I don't think we've ever looked into contract labor. You know, there's a lot of company police out there that some people hire, but we're responsible. Us, you guys too, are responsible for those inmates when they're in there. We have a responsibility to make sure that they're safe. So with contract labor, I would not feel comfortable unless we did background investigations on those people. It's something that's just too high of a risk to put people in there that we don't know who they are and what kind of backgrounds they have. So I'm not aware of anything, sir, but haven't really pursued that because I don't know where to go.
Sheriff, you were referring to 168 beds. That's one number, and it may spike up to that. Y'all do drug raids or whatever it may be, but your average daily population, isn't it in the 140s?
Greg, average daily population?
Are we excluding Catawba County when we have this conversation now? Because they were part of our daily population.
Do I need to have him come up here?
Yes, please.
Come on up, Greg.
Just ours, that's all it's gonna be there.
I don't see a reason to have that.
We're only gonna be housing our people.
Just so I make sure I understood the
Just
question.
our population.
Okay, so if we were setting at even numbers, we'd have 88 and 54, if it was the perfect day. We have 88 sitting at BurkeCounty that belongs to Burke County, 54 sitting at the downtown jail. And I would say that in my almost 4 years as the jail administrator, I've never seen those numbers even kill.
Sure.
So what's the average daily population?
Yeah,
that
the
we
average
would
daily
have?
population, you have that number?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't. I could tell you that 190s seems to ring a bell with me. I don't want to speak for the county manager, but I think he gets the same report that I get. I think that might be a number that's would probably be because we are housing as of today. I think I have 15 females sitting in Alexander County because I'm so overcrowded on that. So I believe 190-ish, somewhere around there is what we tend to.
Now, is that Burke County
That's Burke
inmates
County
only?
inmates.
Okay. Today, you think we got 190? With
I
everybody?
would think we're probably pretty close. Because even if they're in Raleigh and safekeep, all of these people still fall under the umbrella of Burke County. So I have to plug every one of those in.
But you are right, sir. The difficulty is when you have a raid and we bring in 10 or 15 people, then the numbers obviously jump by that amount.
What's the maximum number? What's the actual population?
Total population, 142.
88 and 54. 142.
But you got 104 males and 38 females.
And honestly, I look at what the total count is for the day for the entire
For the
population.
entire population.
Yes, sir, I understand. Like I say, the report that I get, though, it just puts them all together, and I think most here lately, it's been around 240, I believe is the number that's been on the final total.
Well, and I think that's easy enough to check. I mean, we can go back and get those numbers. And I'm assuming that you're wanting just to house Burke County inmates.
Yes.
And what are those numbers? Yeah, we can do some research.
And I
get
do
those.
we do a monthly confinement report. We can get you what those total exact numbers are. And the ebb and flow of that, just for full disclosure, that depends on the number of writs and all the people that are coming into your county that aren't even your inmates, but they're here on Burke County charge. So for a brief moment, they are Burke County. And that changes with the number of courts, the number of writs. There's an array of reasons why that would up and down.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, let me ask one more. Sheriff, is there a reasonably good way to identify prospective sheriff employees? If you canvassed Burke County with a questionnaire, opinion questionnaire, is there a way that you could take that results and identify potential candidates that would possibly be happy to be a sheriff? It looks like should be some research within our own county that we could do that. I asked the question to my granddaughter, who, by the way, is number 4 in her class.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but, I asked her, and she also told me that East Burke High School is going to graduate 30, 40 people less than they did last year. So we're not out of the declining population yet. But anyhow, I just feel like that two things we may ought to be able to identify, and I maybe will want to involve Western Piedmont Community College, because that would be a good project for some people in there to do this and tabulate for you. But it would take somebody to set up that questionnaire and answers on it. But I know we're down. I believe we're just a little bit over 3% on unemployment, which makes it tough. And you don't need to feel bad. Everybody I talk to, including churches, are having hard times filling positions. So there's several emails on my computer right now of churches looking for people to fill some positions. So, but I thought maybe being a little bit creative some other way might gain something. I don't know.
We've looked at that, and we've had some people helping us. We would be open to any suggestions anyone has. If you find a tool to do that, you'll be a rich man, because every sheriff in North Carolina and throughout the nation and the police chief would gladly pay for that ability to recruit those people. But we have tried. The difficulty that you have with law enforcement is you miss that 18 when they graduate high school. It's 21 before they can come to work with us. So that 3 years, they find something else. If we could recruit straight out of high schools, and we do, we've started very early. We're in middle schools, and we go to job fairs and things, but that's the difficulty that we have from 18 to 21, losing them to where their interests have gone somewhere else. The difficulty we're having now with the economy is we're having deputies leaving and going to jobs making $50,000. So when you get almost a $20,000 raise, I mean, they just can't say no to it. That's not in the past when the economy was not doing as well, and those numbers were not out there like that. It was easier to keep people. On top of that, I think in conjunction with law enforcement have really got pounded about various things that people just don't have an interest that they once had. But I am very open to any suggestions you have, sir, that we'll be glad to pursue those.
Well, this just, some jobs just lend itself, if you're gonna be promoted, you gotta move. I mean, that's, you know, if you wanna make the same money that a church that's got 10,000 members, well, you gotta move to a church that makes 10,000 men. But just to give you an example, I had an engineer who left Hickory, North Carolina, to go to New York for a $40,000 a year increase. 2 months later, called and begged to come back at his same salary. So,
Yeah, we've had a few people leave and come back. Here's the thing about the sheriff's office, and I hear it every time, mostly every time. I love the sheriff's office. I just can't make enough money, then I can go get this raise. We've had a few that's left and actually did come back. And I think the sheriff's office, we're kind of, it's a camaraderie, a family type atmosphere. People love to be there. It's just the reality of supplying their families with the economic needs is when they have a chance to increase their pay significantly, they'll do it, even though they don't like the jobs. And I've talked to some. They say, I've talked to 3 people within about 4 or 5 months that left the sheriff's office. Every one of them said, I'd be there today if I could make the same amount of money I'm making now. And I don't know what we can do to correct that. I mean, but again, I can't emphasize enough, thank you, commissioners, for giving us that market average money, because we were losing, well, we lost 18 people within about a year and a half.
Other questions or comments? Okay, Steve, move on in your number 2.
Okay.
Background investigator. Stay there. Don't leave, please.
I'll go ahead and read it, although I have, I've touched on it some already. As far as contracted background investigator, the sheriff's office asks that the commissioners approve the sheriff's office budget request to contract a retired Burke County Sheriff's Office captain who is a reserve deputy to conduct background investigations for the detention officers to staff the new jail. In the sheriff's office experience, we believe utilizing an experienced former criminal investigations division lieutenant would better serve the sheriff's office and our citizens in conducting these investigations. B, the sheriff's office goal is to begin those background investigations in July for all Burke-Catawba District Confinement Facility detention officers who wish to apply with the new jail. North Carolina Sheriff's Training and Standards require that the Sheriff's Office conduct background investigations on all detention officers who are not currently employed by the Burke County Sheriff's Office. And again, like I mentioned before, we just cannot simply transfer those staff from Burke-Catawba to the Sheriff's Office new jail. C, in the current environment of significant nationwide decrease of law enforcement and detention officer applicants, the Sheriff's Office needs to begin recruiting and hiring as soon as possible for several reasons, including 1, a concern that sufficient officers will not be able to be hired to fully open the jail. 2, lean jail staffing in the new North Carolina Sheriff's Training and Standards will create a significant need to hire these new detention officers and have them complete the 1-month detention school and their field training prior to opening the new jail. And then that's why I mentioned too, it's our understanding that Catawba County is planning to start hiring detention officers in July 2019 for their new jail addition with the tentative opening date of July 2020.
Now, questions for the sheriff on hiring a background investigator?
Sheriff, we have a person in place that can do this already.
What we have to
So
do,
I'm a little confused on why we need another person.
yeah, what it is that we have to have our detectives. They pull off of felony cases. Detectives just investigate felonies. So what we do now when we have an applicant is that's assigned to a detective to do. So that's less time that they can spend investigating criminal cases. We could do this if we're hiring 1 or 2, like we've been hiring in the past. But when you start looking at 37 applicants or whatever number applies from Burke-Catawba, it shut down the detective division. They would all be doing background investigations. So it's just the sheer number of what we're looking at. But we use our current detectives to do those.
So Sheriff, are you saying we can't use somebody else to do them? I mean,
Well, we're just concerned, and I don't want to use names or anything, but we just had somebody tell me that they paid, I believe he said $5,000 for background investigations, that he hired somebody based on that recommendation, and this person took some of that property from this company, and so not only did they not find that he was a convicted felon, they had pending charges. So this background was cleared, and he hired this person without them apparently even doing a records check. So you've got to be very careful of who you're hiring, and we've heard those horror stories over and over. When you have people that are doing this for just opening up a business to do background investigations, anybody can hang a shingle. But the reason that we would like to go with somebody that we know that have done these background investigations themselves, there's many times that when you look at a piece of paper and you go through the first process, you make it through the paperwork part of the background investigation, our detectives will find problems. And their interviewing skills, they'll find a lot of problems. That if you don't have a experienced interviewer, that goes missed. And then when you hire somebody, you deal with them for months, and then you realize that you would not have hired them if you had have known all this stuff. So our detectives find a lot of stuff in their investigations that prevents us from hiring people that will not make it. So we just would like to go with a known person. All we're asking for is the cost would be the same that it would be of using a detective. We're not trying to pay somebody any more than what the detectives would make. And we may not get close to the number that we asked. The $75,000 was if we had to do 100 background investigations to hire the number of people that we talked about. That was just the maximum cost that we could foresee. Some of them won't take that long. But we had asked for $75,000 as a cap. Hopefully, we could do it for much less than that. But when this person tells us this person's good to go, or they don't recommend, and we've had that. I mean, they get through the investigator's investigation, but they say, they recommend yes or no. And there's been times when they will just recommend no. But many times they find things that's not put down on paper. You just cannot do an investigation just looking at paper. So we're just wanting to use the known commodity that we have, and somebody that's got a history of doing those and has the expertise to glean information that people are not always forthcoming in sharing.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Steve, how much interpretation do you need to do when you do these background? I don't mean can a child do it with the proper training. I guess what I'm saying is $75,000 for one guy. It looks like you could hire a company for that kind of money that facilitates it much longer in it. And how long would he be employed for that? You said it might not be $50,000 to $75,000.
Yeah, and how we came up with that, Mr. Taylor, was, let me find it here. We took that, our investigators, we asked them how much time they spend on these. Now, it's much more in depth than just doing a records check or doing an interview. Everything that they've done in the past, they talk to their employers, they talk to the family, they go to the house, they go to their neighbors. So it's much in depth. And so we just calculated that if we spend 40 hours on a background investigation for 43 positions, that's what we had asked for, it would require a minimum of 1,720 hours of background investigations. So we estimate, obviously, you'd like to hire all 43 that you did a background investigation. So conservatively, we said we may have to interview 100 to get 43. It may be more than that. But at 100 people that you do this 40-hour background investigation, that's where we came up with 4,000 man-hours at a cost of $18.64 an hour for this background investigator. That's where we come up with the $75,000. Now, what we hope to do is, as far as BurkeCounty, they are a known entity. We know at least what they've done on the job. In fact, our downtown jail works with BurkeCounty a lot, so they have a pretty good idea of what kind of staff they have. Hopefully, it would not take us that long to do somebody's already employed with BurkeCounty. But that was just a number that we didn't want to exceed. That was a top cap number, 75,000, with 100 background investigations to hopefully hire 43 people.
Other questions or comments? All right, Commissioners, any comments for the county manager on what direction you might want him to take from this point forward?
Now, Johnny, there's a lot of ifs and ands here that we don't have really answers to, and we really don't know the final outcome of what's going to happen here. We don't even know if we can open the jail up yet, you know. And of course, another question is, I haven't heard anything what our plans are for the old jail, and is that just going to be sitting there empty, or, you know? I think everybody. It seems like all the counties around us, a lot of them have built new jails, so they. We probably don't have that carryover of inmates that we once maybe would have had today, but I still think there's a lot of questions here to be, and a lot of unknowns here, I think. That's what scares me, is the unknowns.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go back to what Commissioner Britton was saying earlier. Obviously, our numbers differ from what the sheriff's saying and what we're saying. But, I think that 41 in the budget's a good number, and whether that's the whole number or part of the number, we can stair-step our way into this, because we can open one pod, two pods, three pods, whatever it is, but and see to get that exact number. Because obviously, that's a pretty wide margin from what you're saying and what we're saying. So, my opinion is we go with what our county manager suggested and budgeted, and then if we have to adjust, we have to adjust. But this time, I think that's a solid place to start.
And one of the things, Mr. Chair, that I didn't say, one of the things in that 60 that we felt was extremely important was to have jail lieutenants. We were just surprised that the jail lieutenants were cut out, because now you've got one person for 24/7, and it drops all the way to a line sergeant to make decisions on who do you bring from Raleigh, go across to the state to get, who do you put in safekeeping in Raleigh, what do I do about this person and this problem? We're really shocked that we don't have anybody between the jail administrator and a line sergeant. So we would strongly suggest that we have jail lieutenants. And what do you do? What if something happens to Greg? I mean, who does that? The jail lieutenant has zero idea how to do those things. Zero. They just don't do that, the administrative part of it. So there's nobody to do that job.
Mr. Chairman, I was just looking at the sheriff's office detention, and his budget in 16-17 was $807,000. This year, it's $2,184,310, and what is that, about 120% increase? And I flip through this and I just kind of get, have to go outside and mow grass or something. But most of our increases are coming from employee and employee-related expenses, such as insurance and retirement and all that. And every time we go up on the salaries, then you go up on all those other things, which it makes it hard to conceive just, where's this going to end in the way of budget for counties. And I used this one time before, that the example of Charlotte, Mecklenburg City Police, and they have added 2.5 times the employees. Their budget is, I've heard 4.5, and I've heard 600% increase. And they got the same problem as you got. Now, that doesn't make us feel any better. It just, it's, and the sad part of that, and probably the saddest part, is that the poor taxpayer is burdened with paying the prices, and folks, things are not better. I mean, it's not any safer to walk on the street. You had a shooting last night in my neck of the woods. So, and I say that just to say that I think that we need to get together as leaders. And I don't think until we start at school-age kids, and when I say school-age, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grades, and re-educate the value of caring and re-educate the value of getting along. And it's what we need is, and I hate to use this, but we need a little bit more Jesus in people's lives so that your life won't be so hectic and people won't be out shooting each other and that kind of thing. But in summation, it's just that we're all in this plight, and somewhere there lies a golden nugget or an idea that somebody has that can help us get out of this situation. And I don't know where it is. If I did, I would tell you. But I think the creative side of somebody is going to come up with some answers, because everybody is feeling the pinch that you're feeling, and every county is feeling the pinch of higher taxes and spending more money. And it's not going to resolve the issues, many of the issues. We just feed the issues is what we're doing. So,
One thing, though, that you got to give yourself some credit. You did stop the bloodletting. You put a tourniquet on us losing those people. It was getting to the point where, until you give us the raise, that we were going to have to sincerely look at changing the duties of the sheriff's office and just start concentrating on certain aspects and let some things go. Now our officers, with 16 vacancies, we are struggling for these officers. They're having to work lots of overtime. These detention officers, and I was asked about transport. There is no transport officers. These people that's going to be taking up to 50 people from the new jail to the downtown jail, those are bailiffs. They are not in the courtroom. So what they're having to do, the transport officers are bailiffs that's working overtime. I got in the car from Raleigh and headed back from Raleigh yesterday, and I'm looking, and it's after 5:30, 6 o'clock. We got 4 bailiffs that's transporting. They've worked all day. Now they're transporting people. So there is no transport officers. And we've got one transport officer that goes throughout the state. Everybody else in that transport team that we wanted, all they're going to be doing would be transporting back and forth all day long when the bailiffs are tied up. There's many times that we're getting criticized by judges because we don't have sufficient bailiffs in the courtroom. Now, if we go with this 41 and we open up that jail, now we've got to have bailiffs out of the courtroom full time, make them transport officers. And we're already struggling. Now, the difficulty for people that's not doing the job is that sometimes you don't have court. And now those officers, they can do stuff. And that's what we're doing. We utilize them, they become transport officers. But there's times when 6 courts,
Most we've ever had 6 court
well,
cases.
there's time we have 6 courts with 10 bailiffs. Now, how many of those are security? 3?
Yes, that front door, 3.
So that's
at least
3.
7.
That leaves 7 bailiffs if you don't have anybody on vacation, nobody sick, nobody training. That's 1 per courtroom. And there's times, and I've had judges ask me, we just don't have 1 bailiff. We usually have 2, 3 for Superior Court. So we work under those conditions that people don't see. And I just can't emphasize enough, when you keep pulling these people and working them overtime, it gets to the point where they are tired and overburdened, and especially with people with working detention and patrol deputies, they're already working 12 theoretically, it's really 13 a day. So when they have to work over, there comes a threshold when they become not as safe or not as where you want them as far as being able to react. And we're facing that with 16 vacancies now, 16 officer vacancies.
One other creative, silly question. Have we thought about, or is it allowable to do, my wife gets 2 or 3 calls a week to substitute teach. Can we do a substitute sheriff for a day, deputy for a day?
Substitute sheriff.
And can you use people, and this is the reason I'm asking that, people who are, off that day, like for Catawba County, Alexander, or neighboring counties, can we do neighboring counties, or is that allowed?
Yeah. No, that's what we verified, that we can't even use Catawba people to come to our new jail. They have to be certified by the sheriff's office. And one thing you got to think about is, like deputies, think that's 16 weeks of, what is basic law enforcement training now? 16 weeks of basic law enforcement training, then 18 weeks of officer field training before they ever can go out on the street. So we just can't, have volunteers and stuff walk in and do those jobs.
I'll tell Jason you're looking bad, see if he'll come see you.
All right, Sheriff, here's what we're going to do. Brian's going to set up a meeting. I want Captain Huntley there, and one of your choosing. You'll be meeting with the vice chair and myself and the county manager and Margaret, and it'll have to be very quickly. We've got to arrive at some numbers. I've heard a lot of information from the commissioners today, and I need to get back to these 3 commissioners with some information. So we'll do it very quickly, and we'll arrive at a conclusion. We will let you know what I want you to bring, number-wise or whatever else that we need, Greg, so that we can sit down at the table. Be prepared to be there for a while so we can sit down, and we're going to work this out to the final conclusion. I think we've heard about as much information that we can hear. I think we all know what it is, but we just got to arrive at the number. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else? You're done.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Sorry that took so long. Let's move over to Carolina Land and Lakes, budget reconsideration. Melissa Patton, Executive Director. Melissa, sorry you had to wait there for that.
That's all right. That's important, critical stuff you got to work on. When I was here in February, I told you about our wood pellet project to help poultry farmers that we've got going on in this region. And but I didn't have time to tell you about some of our other great projects, and I wanted to take just 2 minutes to tell you about when Carolina Land and Lakes was first initiated by the Department of Agriculture. Their first priority was Burke County, and Burke County has a need with Hunting Creek in the Hunting Creek watershed. It's a 303D listed impaired water, and so Carolina Land and Lakes started working on that right away and was able to get a grant to help with the watershed plan. They hired a contractor and did that part, and then they started working on BMPs on Hunting Creek and did some work over at Western Piedmont Community College and finalized some of that in 2014. And today, we continue to work in that watershed and to improve that. So we're not just working on energy with the poultry farmers, we're also concerned and trying to help with water quality and water issues in Burke County. We recently received a grant from Clean Water Management Trust Fund to work on this stormwater erosion and runoff from Manola Road onto the J. Iverson Riddle property. And we're working on that right now and trying to seek additional funding from Division of Water Resources. Carolina Land and Lakes just need your support to continue helping the farmers, the small business owners, and the local government complete the projects that benefit the citizens of Burke County. I thank you for your time today. I hope you remember my presentation back in February and the other things we're doing here in Burke County, and would like for you to reconsider supporting Carolina Land and Lakes. You did support us back in 2010 until we had a change in administration and all the federal employees left, and then it left staff people that didn't know who was supporting us and not, and so they didn't request any funds from you after 2011 until I came on board and realized that the counties that had been supporting us were no longer supporting it because we had not been making presentations and asking you for the support.
All right, gentlemen, questions for Melissa?
How do you guys differ or work with the county's soil and water conservation group?
We differ from them because we can work, because we are a nonprofit, we can work on different issues, but we are working coincidentally with them on this project at J. Iverson Riddle. We asked them to come out, have a buy-in, and right now, if Division of Water Resources supports this project at J. Iverson, the money has to flow through the Soil and Water Office. It cannot be sent directly to a nonprofit. It has to be, we have to be joined with the local government.
All right, other questions or comments?
Melissa, is it fair to ask what these other counties are participating, how much?
Sure. Lincoln County supports us at $10,000 a year. They have for 3 years. Catawba County only supported us at $5,000. Gaston ran their support through their tourism department because in Gaston County we were working only with Mountain Island Educational State Forest. That was our only project in that county. We didn't do everything else that we do here in Burke County. And then I have not heard from Alexander as what their level of support will be going forward, and I've not heard from Caldwell yet. And Gaston is on a, we can't apply till June 1st, or till after June 1st, and we won't hear until August about that because they run it through the tourism fund.
Do you have any grants or sponsors, super sponsor, anything that helps you with your?
Private donors?
Yes.
Not yet. We are working on that. We met with Nancy Taylor at the Burke Community Foundation to talk about an endowment possibly and how we could start finding those local donors because we are a staff of 2, and so fundraising is very time consuming. And so Nancy's helping us out with that as well.
I just wondered if people like, Duke Power, corporate sponsor, would be interesting because they have something to gain with that also.
Right.
But it's a good program. I appreciate it, and someday I hope I have a bunch of wood to sell you to make pellets out of.
Okay, great.
All right, any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, Melissa, we'll take it under consideration.
All right,
Okay?
thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, this time I'm supposed to turn it over to you, Brian, for some comments if necessary, if you have any.
You had talked to us at the last workshop about increasing funding for BDI. I think the finance officer has done that. We've also had information back about the Board of Elections Director. Rhonda contacted their board, and they would ask that the Board of Elections Director receive the same percentage increase that the other staff in her office are scheduled to receive according to the salary survey. That's 15%. We've also looked at the History Museum for some additional information. I believe you've had that emailed to you. I don't know if the board wants to change the amount that was recommended, to either increase or decrease it, so if I could get some direction from that. And then I was going to share a little bit of other information with you that you may find helpful.
Mr. Chairman,
Let me go with Mr. Britton first.
I did look at the information that we got from the History Museum. As Commissioner Morley indicated the other day, he thought they had some other funds, and they do. It appears that those funds are some restricted, some perhaps not. It also appears what they're attempting to do is use the proceeds from those funds to operate their functions, and then of course they're coming up short at budget time, trying to use those, basically the interest off those funds to operate the organization. I'd still like to give them a little help if we can, to help with their deficits in terms of certainly not the whole amount they're asking for, but maybe another 5, as I mentioned the other day, is what I would like to do.
Anybody else want to comment on that one?
yes, I was going to comment on that, Mr. Chairman. I discussed with a community church leader, and I don't mind telling you the church, Oak Ridge Baptist Church, they do better than we do on these things, but they had a barbecue. They have one a couple times a year. They raised $14,000 in 2 days. Now, when I see that they're not doing anything to raise any money, it makes me reluctant. It also makes me break our agreement that, we wouldn't, they wouldn't come and ask us for money after giving them the property debt-free. And the only terms of that gift was if they closed or decided they no longer wanted it, they couldn't sell it for gain or profit. It had to come back to the county, which I think is fair. Now, but saying that, if we wanted to do anything else, we need to do something like, if you'll have a fund drive and raise $2,500, we'll match the $2,500. But other than that, I would not be interested in doing anything. It's just asking for money without just as a gift, and you know where the budget is, and if you things that I've been looking through that budget and trying to find things we might tweak and find a little bit of money, and one of my thought, well, we ought to delay this study to raise raises. We ought to give us a year rest on that. But then I found out even that, instead of being a couple $100,000, was like $8,000, and it's just not prudent to make that kind of a change for that kind of money. So I have been horribly too busy to really study the budget like I would like. I have studied the budget a lot. I made hay for a solid week, a month, and it takes a lot of time. But I would like to say, on the behalf of who, I do like the new format of the budget. I think it's really nice. You did that, huh? It's easier to read. From that standpoint, you can actually review this budget faster in this one than you can in the other one. But that's my comment on the. I read the information, and it's just some people ask for money and they really don't need it. Some people ask for money and they desperately need it. It's our purpose and goal in life to find out which side of the fence that is on. And when they show they got, what, $200,000 in the bank?
It was more than that.
More than that. Well, I'd rather give it to the pellet guy, girls.
And just to comment, I'm somewhere in between there. That's why I asked a lot of these organizations do have foundations or endowments or whatever it is. And obviously the numbers were quite higher than what you just said, is well north of $1 million. And so and that's kind of why I requested, I want a little more clarity, because generally on those funds, even if they're restricted, they'll pay out a percentage. And so I kind of wanted clarity on that, because unless you ask, you just don't know. And so, I'm glad that they sent that information. It's quite relevant to this. But that being said, I don't think we should not give them anything because of that, because I understand some of it is restricted. And you got to look at it as this, as a piece of tourism as well, and support tourism and business in Burke County. That history museum is very, very popular. And so I think we need to support them at that $10,000 that Brian requested. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we're giving you 3 different answers, but Mr. Manager, and that takes us going from 5,000 last year to 10,000. That's double, and I think that's I'm comfortable with that at this point. But I do want to support their mission, because I think they do a fantastic job, keep a shoestring budget, and whether they can do fundraisers, I don't disagree with Commissioner Taylor on that at all. But at this point, we do know there's a need there, and I just like to support them.
Anything? Well, looks like it's on me, doesn't it? As much as I really want to give them more money, at this time, I can't do it. There's just too many things on my plate at this time that we need to look at, especially in the jail arena. And we did give 10,000, so I'm going to stick with that for right now, Mr. County Manager. Anything else?
Just a couple quick things. As far as the last presentation, gentlemen, my thought when we were doing our budget, if they are pursuing a grant that and they are notified of an award and need a grant match, they can come before this board at that point in time, make the presentation, and this board finds that it is something that they would like to participate in, then you could award at that point in time the required grant match, or whatever portion of a grant match you would desire, so that they're not being excluded. It's just not being put right up front and wait and see if something happens. But I was going to share with you two.
Let me say one other thing about this. We were apprised of the fact that they may receive an endowment from someone, and I was hoping that that money might be enough to get them through this year, so we could look at them again next year at a different level.
Yeah, and I was talking about Carolina Land and
Oh,
Lakes.
I was talking about the other one. I'm sorry. I got confused. All right, Carolina Land and Lakes again. Yeah, about.
Yeah,
Okay.
if they
Yeah.
receive notice that they've been awarded a grant and need a grant match, they can come back before this board at that point in time, do the presentation, and it's like whenever county staff does a grant, pursues it, once it's awarded, we have to come before the board and get your permission to move forward and get the grant match. So that's something we've done, and I think we could do again if the board was so inclined. The two quick things I was going to share with you is, one, animal services applications. We have received, for the director's position, over 50 responses. For the coordinator position, over 70 responses. And for the technician, over 5 responses. Now, I will try to start working through those and come to a conclusion about who to interview and how large a pool of interviewees, because time is running, and July will be here in a flash. Even if you do interviews, make a selection, make an offer, they accept it, they give a notice, you probably end of July. So we will pursue that. I thought that was good information. And from what I understand from what is known at the Human Resources Office, the sheriff, since y'all did the pay increase, has hired 2 deputy sheriff positions and 2 detention officer positions. Again, now the detention officers, of course, didn't get a pay increase in March, but the sworn deputy positions did receive that. But I wanted to just update you on that. And I'll get with you as soon as we can to look at a meeting scheduled with the sheriff regarding his budget concerns.
Gentlemen, we've got June the 6th at 3 o'clock set aside for another budget meeting. The only thing that I have see pending is our negotiation with the sheriff to arrive at some kind of figure. If it's okay with y'all, if we have the meeting and arrive and we can notify you if we change anything and for his budget reconsideration, there would be no need for that June the 6th meeting, and then we just go into the budget and we either vote it up or vote it down. So is that okay with y'all, or do you want to have a June the 6th meeting? I don't know of anything else that needs to come in front of us.
Mr. Chairman, I really can't answer that right now, except with this statement, as long as we get the reserve to bring a, 1 or 2, 3 items that we have questions at the meeting.
Sure. I mean, that's always been true, yeah. So I particularly don't see a need for a June the 6th meeting, so I think we can go ahead and cancel that. You're gonna have to get this meeting really quick with the sheriff and his staff so we can work on that. Okay.
Can Brian check these figures? I'd like to have this sheet if these figures are right on this sheet here
Okay.
that Mayor did. If there's any adjustment or whatever, it would sure be helpful.
Sure. Right? You will handle it?
Well, I will,
But we'll probably be on Margaret's desk.
we'll have to just to see
Margaret
where
got the chance to see him, hear him before. See, he's aware of it.
I'm just, I want to make sure that this is.
And Margaret, I echo what Commissioner Taylor said. I was glad that I asked you to change this form because it was much easier to read, and thank you for your hard work on that. Okay. Is there anything else to come before us today? If not, then we will, okay?
So we definitely are canceling the June.
We are
6th.
definitely canceling June 6th at 3 o'clock. There's nothing else. The sheriff is the only thing we have to solidify, and we can get everything back.
That probably needs a motion and a vote.
Okay, what kind of motion would you like to have?
I think it would just be motion to cancel the June, what is it, 6th?
June 6th.
Meeting. And commissioners have the reserved right to ask questions, any remaining questions they may have at the next meeting.
All right, all of you heard Maynard's motion. All in favor, raise your right hands. 5-0. Madam Clerk, thank you, Maynard. All right, we'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned.
That went in on you with it.